I'm interested in a concept that's getting a lot of attention in security circles these days, and this is the individual perimeter, where the goal is to secure the individual rather than the corporate repository. Can you talk to me about where this concept comes from and what is RSA's approach to the issue?
Sure, happy to. Our sense is that both with mobile devices, but in general, in terms of the role of the user for IT, many attacks now are coming directly to users rather than coming through traditional channels, drive-by attacks or malware infections and so on. And so when an enterprise looks at where their points of vulnerability are, they have to look at who the user is, what kind of mechanisms like spear phishing and so on might be directed against that user, and look for ways to protect against those. So it's not as though you can just put a firewall, a network firewall in place and create a wall around your enterprise. It's that you have to think about where the users are, how they're interacting with your enterprise, what mechanisms they're using, and the ways in which you can help them to prevent infection of their devices, to become knowledgeable so they're not vectors for infection of your enterprise. For example, in our own case here at RSA, we do quite extensive training for the folks inside RSA to help raise the level of awareness about what might be spurious emails that might contain malware attachments, for example, so that the likelihood that any of us might click on a link by mistake or believing that a spear phishing email is actually a legitimate one is reduced. And that recognition that users are a point of vulnerability that any enterprise has to pay a special attention to now is what we've meant by the user perimeter.
Okay. Part of this seems to be the mobile revolution.
Yes.
Mobile adoption's rampant these days, but businesses still seem to be struggling with issues around BYOD. How difficult is it to secure mobile devices, and what is the best way to approach managing multiple platforms?
So one of the core things still is around the user and training the user. The user remains a point of vulnerability there. The device itself, though, is clearly an issue as well. And there are three big issues that we've seen. The first of those is the vulnerabilities introduced by the downloading of applications. And it's difficult for an enterprise to control those. So the old days of BlackBerry management, where you had an enterprise activation and you only got the application saying enterprise approved, is difficult with bring your own devices. The model for users is that they should freely access application stores. There are some significant advances in this area around vetting of applications, but there still is clearly significant work to be done in order to help enterprises understand which applications really are legitimate and which are not. The second issue is the relationship between personal activity on the device and enterprise-related activity. In the Innovation Sandbox this year, the winner of the Sandbox was a company called Remotium, who allows segregation of enterprise activity from personal activity. And these kinds of models, similar to virtual desktop interfaces, for example, may well be the right direction to help segregate out these two very different domains and allow the enterprise to be confident that whatever information the user is working with for the enterprise is not going to be infected or lost because of personal relationships on that device. And the third area is in terms of the actual authentication of the user themselves. We've increasingly felt that the model for user interaction with the enterprise needs to be a risk-based model in which you look at a broad range of factors, not just a single password or a single token, and base your decision about what you can allow the user to do based on this broad range, not just a dual factor, but multiple universal factor authentication. That's what we've announced in our most recent Authentication Manager 8.0, is the ability to move from static dual factor kind of models into these much broader risk-based models for authentication. And we believe that for mobile devices especially, that's a fundamental and essential model that would allow us, for example, to take advantage of unique device characteristics, as well as things like the relationship between information about the user and what kind of transaction the user wants to do.